Okay, we're just about to go. All right, hello everyone. I'm sorry that we're on YouTube today, but we're streaming live with Will Trithart from Big Spoon Kitchen, and this is episode 30 of Art for Art's Sake. I'm hearing myself double on. There we go. Okay, let me fix that. Sorry. So Will is one of my close friends, and we're so excited to share something totally different with you today. Culinary arts. Why not? Will is one of the most creative people I know, and he's absolutely incredibly creative in the kitchen too. So I want to just give you a little preview of, or not preview, a little background. Art for Art's Sake is a new program from the St. Lawrence County Arts Council where we're showcasing local artists from different, all sorts of different medium. It's been so much fun to get to know some of the people that live in our area, or people who grew up here or lived here for a long time and are doing other things now, learning about what they're doing and what makes them tick in a way. So Art for Art's Sake has been such a wonderful program. We're so excited to keep it going. If you're an artist and you'd like to share your art form with your community here virtually, then reach out to me directly and we'll get you a spot in the coming weeks. Also, I want to thank all of the sponsors who have sponsored the programs in the past. Thank you so much for keeping this going, for helping our organization stay moving forward as well. If you'd like to sponsor the program, or if you just want to make a donation to help support our nonprofit organization, you can go to slcartscouncil.org/give right now or right after the show and make a donation today. So without further ado, here's Will Trithart, and he's got Rose, his mom, who's the co-owner of Big Spoon Kitchen. They're co-owners of Big Spoon Kitchen, and they're in Big Spoon Kitchen right now. Why don't you get started?
All right, hey everybody. I'm Will. Welcome to Big Spoon Kitchen from afar. I'm glad to have you all here. I have a table full of food set out, and we'll see what we get to. I opened Big Spoon Kitchen with my mom 3 years ago, and we've been growing steadily and trying to better execute our mission, which is to bring local food to more people, break down the barriers between local farmers and local eaters. We have both of those here in the North Country. So here in the kitchen, we prepare prepared meals from local food, but we really like to empower home cooks as well to make that connection at home through farmers markets, through CSAs, through direct contact with farmers. All the food you see in this table is from local farms. And I want to kind of talk about the art of cooking without a recipe, just finding out what you have, what's available, and then turning that into food for your family, for yourself, or even to sell. So we're going to talk about braising, because as you know, we're not in the growing season yet, not quite. Asparagus is just around the corner. We have been getting some garlic scallions and things like that, but we're really working with last year's stuff still. So here on the table, we have potatoes, celeriac, rutabagas, onions, garlic, carrots. Most of the stuff is from Kent Family Growers. Thanks, Dan. Some of it's from Daniel Martin. Thanks, Daniel. We have some meat and some beef and some chicken as well, just to tell you some proteins, and how to bring this all together without a recipe, without consulting your phone, with just looking at the stuff, looking at your pantry, and making it happen. So I started some stuff just like any good cooking show before, because braising takes a while. So in the oven we have a beef chuck roast that I started around noon, and in the crock pot we have some chicken that I started around the same time. So we'll take a peek at those. If you have any questions, comments, I'm not sure how you do it on YouTube, but comment or something, and Maggie will tell me the question, not in real time, but a little later, and I will do my best to answer it. We don't have any secrets here at Big Spoon. If you ask us the right question by email or on Facebook, we'll get back to you with our best take on it.
Yeah, people can
So-
comment right into the chat and I'll see it right away.
Perfect. So let's just zoom in on this cut of meat to start off. It's a cut of meat you've probably all seen in the store before. It's a chuck steak. Steak is a loose term. I guess it's on the shoulder of a cow. And it's notoriously full of connective tissue, and it's got pieces of bone. And if you put this on the grill, like you would a steak, and tried to eat it, you'd have a very bad time. It's also one of the more inexpensive cuts of meat, usually coming in less than $5 a pound. But it's got one of the biggest concentrations of flavor of any part of the cow. Much more flavor than you'd have in your tenderloin or your other expensive cuts. All those connective tissues and things have a lot of flavor. Fat is a vehicle for flavor. We'll talk about ways that you can then take that fat back out of your dish if you don't want to have all of it, but it's a great place to get flavor. So, salt, excellent, or really an essential part of cooking. It's not just to bring flavor, but it actually works chemically with meat, especially to break it down, to make it more digestible. So one of the first things you want to do when you're dealing with meat and you're braising at home, and again, braising is the slow cooking of meat, oftentimes in a crock pot. That's probably one of the more common home ways of doing it, but you can also do it in your oven. You could do it on a grill even, like covered on the top of a grill. We like to do it in the oven here at Big Spoon because crock pots just aren't big enough. But for most home cooks, it's a great place to get a consistent heat, a built-in lid, because you want to, usually braises are done in a sealed environment, so you don't have your liquid evaporating too fast. But let's get right to it. Why not? We're going to take this beef and season it. I would recommend seasoning it ahead of time by even a whole day. So if you get that cut of meat from Pat Naples Pork or from any place that sells beef, 8 O'Clock Ranch, things like that, and you get it thawed out, be generous with seasoning. Like, you might be surprised what I'm doing here, but really coating the surface of the meat with salt. If you think about it, that meat is very thick, and I'm not seasoning it all the way through in the middle, so that salt will be distributed on the whole dish. We're going to keep it simple today and just use salt and pepper on our meat. You can obviously bring lots of different flavors in depending on where you're going, but this is just the basics. We're going to get this going with some salt and pepper in a hot skillet right over here. If you are working in a home kitchen that's not ventilated, as in you don't have a range hood, be wary. This is going to produce a lot of smoke and steam. It can also be accomplished this days on your outdoor grill. So if it's summer and you don't want to heat up your house, by all means do this step on your grill outside. But in this time of year where you don't mind getting a little extra heat in your house, do it right in your home. Open a window if you don't have a good hood, but you really want high heat. We're trying to brown the meat, which actually caramelizes the proteins in the meat, building flavor. If we just take a lot of crock pot recipes, kind of a pet peeve of mine. People just throw everything in their crock pot and turn it on. I mean, sure, that's easy, that's intriguing, but you're not browning anything at that point, so you're not going to be building the flavors that you really want. So it can just be an extra 5-minute step of browning your meat, or even browning off your vegetables that you're going to put in. With heat, with the fat, it's breaking down the carbohydrates and proteins in food to create more simple things like sugars and things like that. Not in the bad sense, but the sense that you're going to get more flavor out of it. So we have a skillet that's already getting quite hot. We have pretty high BTU burners here at Big Spoon, and we're going to put that meat right in and really push the limit of how brown we can get it. I mean, we want it to be not in the realm of black, but dark brown. And you can just usually feel the heat. You don't want to add your oil too early. Another little tip here. Some people will put their oil in the skillet, then put it on the heat. That's not recommended just because you don't want your oil to get too hot. Even a high temp oil can get too hot, and so oftentimes they'll say hot skillet, cold oil. The amount of reduction in temperature that cold oil will give you is minimal compared to the mass in the pan. So feeling for heat here, I'm thinking it's pretty good. And then you hit it with the oil. It should start dancing, as you can see, and even start to smoke a little bit. And then you go in with your meat. This is the point where you're like, oh crap, I didn't turn on the ventilator. So make sure you do that. And you can, like, 5 minutes is not a crazy amount of time to consider browning a piece of meat like this before. In the meantime, let's talk about chicken. Another meat that's readily consumed here, and I would never really recommend braising light meat chicken breast, but the dark meat chicken. Here are some drumsticks. Just like chuck, one of those meats that has a lot of connective tissue and things that don't get broken down just with a quick grill. Certainly you can grill chicken drumsticks and enjoy them after 10, 15 minutes, but you're going to notice that you're pulling little bits of sinew or tendon to get at your meat. With a braise, that will break down more, and like we'll see when I pull this out of the crock pot, you'll get very tender chicken. So again, we can season that because we'll prepare for the next round of browning with salt and pepper. And again, this is just like the total foundation of almost any dish, a chicken dish or a meat or a beef dish. We can take these flavors anywhere. We could do a mole rub on these or put them off in a liquid that brings you to a Mexican flavor, or we could be adding capers and lemon and have an Italian braise. We could be doing literally anything. I'm just showing the salt and pepper just to show you the basic technique of it. And when it boils down to it, that's what really I want to get to is techniques. If you know techniques, you don't need recipes. Recipes are just walking you through a technique, and they're giving you exact numbers that they think you should use. This isn't baking. We're not baking a fancy cake. We have huge margins of error. We could have 1 carrot or 10 carrots, and it wouldn't matter. I mean, one would clearly lead to a much higher carrot ratio, but it's not going to affect the outcome of the dish. So we'll season your size of chicken, and then it's ready to go. Unlike some like cooking steak or other things, or it's a quick cooking technique, you can season well in advance for braising. Sometimes if you're cooking a steak or a burger, you don't want to add salt right away because salt brings liquid to the surface of something. It draws juices to the surface. That's why if you salt onions or a vegetable, they'll leak out liquid. You don't want that when you're dealing with saute or grilling something, because you don't want a lot of liquid gushing into your pan. Let's check back with our beef. It looks like it's getting ready to flip.
Bill, how do you know when to flip the steak? Like based on the type of skillet, cast iron, like does it matter, or how do you know?
How do I know what pan to use? For this, for browning off like this, you want
and
when to
flip it? Is that what you asked, Maggie?
Yeah.
When to flip it?
Again, there's a pretty big margin of error, luckily. I started to see the edges of the meat kind of curling up. And I could almost see the color. You can see it's almost like a crust there. I've done it 3 times. Another kind of myth, and something that I'd like to dispel right now is that you shouldn't turn over your meat like multiple times. Even in saute and grill, it's totally fine. It's not recommended to be flipping things over more than once. With this, it doesn't really matter. It's like a thin steak. If you wait too long, the whole thing will kind of curl up. And then when you flip it over, you're not going to get a good sear on the other side. So sometimes I even flip it over like every minute and just keep browning from both sides until I get where I want to be.
So what you're saying, well, if you're not sure, it's okay to flip earlier. If it's not brown enough, just flip it back.
Exactly. Can't really go wrong. Like obviously if you burned it really badly, But if you're not where you want to be, keep browning. And then I'll show you at the end. You can even brown the sides by holding it up on its edge, which we'll get to. Any other questions coming in from people watching at home? Or?
Not yet. I'll let you know when more come up. But y'all jump in.
If you're, we can talk a little bit about what liquids to braise with. As you see, I have some liquids here. As we wait for that to brown, wine is a classic braising liquid. It doesn't have to be like top shelf wine. I wouldn't recommend using like bottled cooking wines just because they have salt added, and they're usually pretty low grade wine. But you always want to make sure it's good while you're cooking. If it's palatable to the chef or the person cooking at home, that's going to be a good wine to use. Here we have turkey stock that we made this week at Big Spoon. Another kind of like misconception is that you have to match like beef stock to your beef braise or chicken stock to make chicken piccata. The flavor of the meat that you're cooking is going to pervade over the stock that you use. So we're using turkey stock with a beef braise, and at the end of the day, it's going to be a beef dish. Obviously, if someone has an intolerance to turkey or chicken, you want to be aware of that, but you don't have to beat yourself up over it and go to the store and buy some sort of special stock. So here we go. We have the other side nicely brown. And now I'm going to do a little bit of that side sear like I was talking about, where even if it's just for 10 seconds, if you add some pressure, it actually browns faster. And you can kind of just walk the steak around and brown it off a little more.
So we have a couple questions about temperature and cooking it rare versus medium. I mean, you're braising this, you're going to put it in liquid at some point. So does it matter how do you get it to the right temperature to do a rare meat or a medium meat? And like, how do you determine that? Do you use a thermometer?
That's a good question, and it's got a simple answer. When you braise, you are not cooking to a certain temperature. Well, you are in a way, but there's no levels of doneness. You braise a meat fully, as in it's probably up to 180 to 190 degrees internal, but you don't have to worry about a thermometer or anything because it's well beyond the safe temperature of cooking. There is no rare braise. There's no medium braise. You're basically cooking the meat until it falls apart, and that means that those connective tissues that we saw are dissolved, and that happens around 180, 190, even 200 degrees. Like if you think about barbecue, the meat is falling apart, and that means that it's achieved that temperature where the ligaments and connective tissue is breaking down. So since we're putting it in liquid, liquid boils or water boils around 210 degrees, 212, depending on the salt content. So you're never going to go over 200. If you had an internal temperature on your meat of 250 degrees, it would become a product that you wouldn't want to consume. So the liquid actually regulates it from getting too hot. So hopefully that answers the question.
Yeah, totally.
The nice thing about braising for a beginning cook is you don't have to worry about a tough meat. I mean, when you braise, you will always have pork tender meat. When I cook a steak, it's too easy to get on the grill, a tough steak, a hard to eat steak. Braising will just always be tender, flavorful, guaranteed success with a piece of meat. That's from a mom.
Awesome, very helpful. I don't know if I've ever braised anything before, so now I'm getting inspired, y'all.
Okay.
You probably have without realizing it, because lots of things that, like, I'm pretty sure at dinner group you've made something braised before, like beef stew is a braise technically.
Oh yeah.
You're cooking a meat in liquid until it's tender. So now we'll take the meat out of the pan, and now what we have left in the pan is what they call an afar. So these little brown bits of things. You don't want to just like put that in the dish pit because there's flavor there. And this is where you can bring in your liquids. So you have some wine. You can use the wine to depaste the pan. So you're also taking away a step for your dishwasher because it's going to make it a lot easier to wash this in the end. But just pour in some liquid. It doesn't have to be all the liquid that you're going to use, but just to take just those little bits off the pan, and then you can pour them back over your meat. And your pan is, relatively clean, ready to get rinsed off onto the next adventure. So the next step, and this thing about braising is that if you want to braise dinner, you can't start at 4 o'clock in the afternoon when you're off work. You need to think ahead and plan ahead. I think of it more as like for the home cook, a weekend activity. You start, on Saturday, maybe you salt your meat and plan out what you want to do, and then on Sunday you start your braise, and then by Sunday dinner time you have dinner, but then you'll also have a whole week's worth of meals, if you plan out correctly, of things you can do with that finished product. So when we get this with some more liquid and some vegetables and put it in the oven, we'll have some downtime, 3-4 hours before we get to do anything. So perfect time to have a Sunday, Saturday activity. But the nice thing is there's not very much hands-on time. It's just over the course of a whole day. So this could even go into your crock pot now, if you have one big enough, or it can just go into any kind of pan you have at home. You probably don't have hotel pans at home, but any kind of Dutch oven or anything that will hold it. And then you can, if you have a lid that fits it, great. Or you can use foil or parchment just to create like a sealed environment, like basically recreating a crock pot for your oven. So we don't need to completely cover the meat with liquid, but you want to have it at least like halfway covered. So you can use any combination. I have out chicken stock, I have out wine, we have some beer, we have diced tomatoes. You can add flavoring agents like oyster sauce, soy sauce, fish sauce, anything. You can put raisins and dates in there. You could add literally, there's recipes for inspiration, but there's no rules. You can add anything you want. You can add dried herbs. You can add fresh herbs. So you can just plant some thyme. That you can put in a couple sprigs of these. You can put in bay leaves. You can, no rules. For this case, yeah.
What's your favorite flavor combination for this kind of braised beef?
I'm kind of a sucker for the classics, like we're doing here. Some thyme, some red wine. Save some for the chef here. Tomato. It's nice to have something with a little acidity. It just helps kind of work on breaking the meat down faster. So
if this were a pork dish, I always go to mustard. Mustard and apple cider vinegar, and maybe some white wine.
Then I'm gonna add a little of the stock too. Another reason for the stock, or not another one, well, another besides flavor, is that stock has body. By that I mean, you can kind of see this isn't like just water. It's when it's refrigerated, it's a solid. It's got all that dissolved proteins and things from the turkey. And when we're done with this braise, and I'll show you with the one in the oven, you pull the meat out and then make a sauce with the liquid. So you're not only creating flavorful meat, but you're adding flavor to your liquid. And then you can reduce that liquid down and it will thicken up on its own to make a delicious sauce. So the stock will be one of the things that adds to that body, we'll call it. So this, I would recommend bringing it back up to a simmer on your stove.
I never do.
Just because it just cuts down the cooking time. If you throw this in the oven now, it'll take the first hour to hour and a half to get the liquid up to temperature, which means it'll take another hour and a half, which is totally fine. But if it's July and your oven's on, you don't want that.
And the temperature you're talking about, Will, is about 275,
275, 300, 350 even. And again, huge margin of error. That's what we love in cooking. Big margins of error. You just want it to be barely simmering, but it's hard to boil something hard in an oven. It's indirect heat, which means there's not direct flame right on the thing. So it should be pretty safe.
But obviously, if this isn't a glass casserole with a covered lid that I'm using, or in a Dutch oven that I can't put right on the burner, then I'm not going to do this step. I just plan on a little longer.
Or you can have your stock
I'll have your stock
hot, or you can have, you can heat up your braising liquids. But my favorite thing is just to kind of reach around and find things to braise it with. Whatever liquid, whatever beer you're drinking, whatever wine you're having, whatever's left over in your fridge, experiment. There's not really a way to go wrong. So one thing that you could do wrong is over seasoning your braise. There's no going back from seasoning. I mean, you can dilute it, but that's not the point of cooking. We don't want to dilute our flavors. You can always add more salt later. You're already seasoning the meat pretty heavily. This turkey stock actually is unseasoned, so we're well within. We're in the safe zone. So this is almost simmering. We're just going to grab the foil and we're going to put it in the oven and take out the one I started earlier.
Hold on.
All right, so you want a pretty tight fitting seal. So foil's great at that. Obviously a lid and makes the pan is even better. But we're just starting to bubble here, so let's turn the heat off. You might say, oh, how is he not burning his fingers? I have iron fingers. And then right into your oven, and we'll pull out the other one.
I love this cooking show.
So like I said, this went in around noon, so it's been 4.5 hours, which is just about the magic number for a braise to completion. All right, so let's just look at it. You can see it's tender, it's falling right apart. What I did about an hour ago is I added vegetables right into this, right into the liquid. You don't necessarily want to add the vegetables from the beginning because they're going to cook to the point of being total mush, which I didn't want. But you can certainly add them for additional flavor, but just realizing that they're going to turn into total mush.
Sometimes I'll start with onion and garlic underneath my meat, which will turn into mush, but adds the flavor, and that vegetable I might do earlier.
Right, so we have very tender beef here, falling right off the bone, but we also have vegetables that are cooked in that same liquid that are not total mush, yet still tender. So that was about an hour. The rule of thumb for chunky root vegetables is they need about an hour of cooking in simmering liquid. So that's nice to get your timing. So you don't have to have like 4 dishes cooking. You could have your meat, your vegetables right here in one dish. So I just want to show you guys that this meat is tender, and you could serve it just like this on a plate, you know, and then people could, you know, slice it or eat it, or you could even just totally shred it apart, and you know, put it back into your liquid and make a soup or a stew. You could, for leftovers, you have tacos right here, super easy. You have, you know, the possibilities are endless. You can make sandwiches with this. You could, Rosie's, I know, has lots of ideas in her brain right now, just holding herself back. But let's talk about the liquid again. So here we are with a liquid that is very flavorful, but maybe you don't want soup. Sometimes soup is, especially in the summer, like kind of hard to eat. And, a really powerful cooking. This is kind of a crash course right here, so I'm sorry if I'm jumping around, but there's this thing called roux, which is just flour and water mixed together. You can add this, which we keep in the fridge. We make it in batches, but it's just equal parts flour and oil or butter. So you can add this and thicken that up to your desired consistency. And if you want more of like a pot roast consistency, you need to thicken it, then you can put your meat back in. I'm sure we're running out of time here, but we'll just poke ourselves into this crock pot and pull out a drumstick. So we started these around noon, and the nice thing about braising is that you have a tender product, but it's not completely, you know, it still retains its form. So what you could do is even take this back to your skillet and kind of crisp it up a little bit, but it's going to be fall apart tender. As you see, the bones coming right out. And
what did you use
again,
this braising? The braising.
This braising liquid, obviously, you see, it's not just, it's actually leftover enchilada sauce that we had from our menu. Just wanted to show that you can use whatever in your fridge. Enchilada sauce is basically just tomato sauce infused with chilies and spices. So that enchilada sauce is now infused with chicken flavor, and your chicken's infused with enchilada sauce flavor. So again, we have taco possibilities here, or anything else. But the beauty of tender meat is that it's very flexible. It's great for leftovers. Like nothing, like a steak is great off the grill. Don't get me wrong, but a leftover steak, I mean, it's all right, but it's not, certainly not better. Whereas a braised meat dish is better, I would say, the further you get into the week and the more creative you get. I mean, you could even shred this up and fry it up for breakfast with an egg and some potatoes. Possibilities are endless. You don't need a recipe to make this tasty. You don't need a recipe to prepare it. And that's my favorite thing about braising meat. And the vegetables really are a bonus. They add flavor. Sorry to the vegetarians out there that chimed in thinking they learned how to cook vegetarian food. This time of year,
Not
it's all
today.
about things that lasted from the past season. And meat is one of those things that, frozen meat is ready to go anytime. Any other questions coming in about braising?
Yeah, I mean,
More wine?
more generally, I mean, I'm gonna be right over. I'll see you guys in a bit. No, more kind of more generally, and I'd love to hear from both of you. You said earlier, I think you guys are so incredibly creative with your combinations and like the types of things that you make, and a lot of them are based on simple, well-known techniques, but then they just are so incredibly different from what so many other people in our region or whatever have tried. So where do you get your inspiration, and how do you feel about your creative process when you're kind of creating a recipe or making something?
Sure. I think food is such a social thing. I mean, everyone has their own like tradition of cooking. And luckily we have great staff here. My mother and I, and then we have 3 people who help us in the kitchen. And they each have their own past and experiences. So we usually, while we're cooking one menu, if you're not familiar with how Big Spoon works, it's a new menu every week. While we're cooking one menu, we're talking and thinking about the next. And so on Monday and Tuesday, when we're cooking off all the food for the week, we're talking about what's left in the fridge, like what kind of byproducts are we creating that we can reincorporate into a menu, like stock or like anything, or and then we're on the phone with farmers, like, what do you got? When is that asparagus gonna come up? And he's like, it's still snowing, bro. Like, hit me back in a week. I don't know, we have cookbooks on the shelf, but honestly, they get kind of dusty up there. We have kind of a critical mass of people with knowledge and history and lots of traditions that we don't have to do a lot of like outside research. It's mostly just bouncing ideas off one another.
But I will say, Maggie, for a beginning cook, I'm not a chef like some of these guys are. I learned to cook by just looking at cookbooks and trial and error and learning from recipes. So that is definitely a way you could do it. But you gain experience by talking, by talking to people, and watching other people and seeing what tastes good to you, and then asking, how did you make this? How do you get this to happen that just happened here? So I think, as a beginning cook, don't be afraid to try and ask questions and go to cookbooks or online now. Google stuff. I Google stuff all the time if I'm not sure.
And really quick, back to the dish at hand. I didn't want people to get the idea that you should take your braised meat out and leave it in your cutting board while it cools. You really want to have it in the liquid as it cools. That way it's absorbing back the liquid into itself, because when it heats up, it tends to expel liquid, and then when it cools down, so since you want moist meat, you usually want to maybe you shred it up and put it back in, or even just let it cool in the liquid. But didn't want to miss that step.
I'm going to add, for me, dinner one would be this with the vegetables with the jus. I wouldn't even thicken it over potatoes or rice. Dinner 2 would be probably making some kind of a taco with the shredded
pasta. You make pasta.
Beef, or I would do pasta. And dinner 3 would be taking all the drippings that are left, all the vegetables that's left, any meat that's left, adding some more water, and I just call it soup. So you can go pretty far on the energy. I would always cook more than you think you're going to eat, because you can always use it all week, or you could freeze it.
Yeah. And if you have the oven hot, may as well fill it up.
Right.
The stuff freezes great too. You're not going to freeze a steak, but you can freeze braised dishes. They reheat even better than the first time. So this is my little love affair with the types of cuts that don't get like the attention. Like everyone talks about T-bones and ribeyes and tenderloins, but that short rib and the brisket and the chuck steak and all those other cuts that usually your farmer will probably have a whole freezer full of them because everyone's buying the T-bones and Delmonico's. It's not as sexy as on your other grill and grilling up the steak to order. It takes more time. It takes a little bit more preparation, but the results are healthier and more like sustaining.
And all this can be done with a cut of meat from the local grocery store. Find what's on sale. If you're on a budget, go to what's on sale. It's usually going to be these kinds of cuts. And so it's pretty economical for a family.
You want to look for it, even if you don't know the names of the cuts. If you're looking to braise, look for one that looks like it's got a lot of connective tissue and there's not just like, if you see a top round, it's one of those common cuts. It just looks like meat. It's very lean. Everything, the fibers are running the same direction. That's not like one of the worst cuts to braise because it's just going to be stringy and dry. You want to find like ossobuco, which is like the shank, the bottom part of the leg of an animal. It's one of the best cuts to braise because it's got so much tissues that are, needing to break down. So experiment, just try different things, and certainly you can go to the internet. It's one of the greatest resources, but even just trying things on your own, you might make something that no one's ever made before. You probably will, and maybe it's terrible, but maybe it's great. So I'd like to do more of these. Maybe even this will be a little jump start to something that we do if people liked it. And I had fun. I'm ready for dinner. I'm sure y'all are too.
Yeah, I'm super hungry now.
Maggie, you can seriously come over and get some of this if you wanted.
Oh my God, I'm dying. Well, I can't really leave this conversation without saying how much I miss you guys. Will and his wife, Sarah, and their beautiful little daughter, and our 3 other families of ours are in a dinner group together where we meet up every single week and we all cook for each other. There's 10 kids or 10 adults, and we've doubled the number of kids since we started about 3 years ago. So I hope that you guys will think of, we're still Zoom calling and trying to keep connected, but I hope everyone watching will kind of think about the community that food, culinary arts create. So and get connected in that way. You guys are so inspirational, and we really appreciate you sharing this your life in some way. This is so exciting, and I do truly miss you guys so much. But I want everybody to make sure they go check out Big Spoon Kitchen. It's bigspoonpotsdam.com. You can like them on Facebook. I think they're on Instagram too. So go on there. This has been Art for Art's Sake with the St. Lawrence County Arts Council. Thank you so much for joining us.
Bye, Maggie.
Thanks, Maggie. Thanks, everybody.